Welcome, Asteris Koutoulas. Welcome to this series of conversations that I've been having with people that are very key to Mikis Theodorakis and understanding who Mikis Theodorakis is. Our topic is why Theodorakis matters. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because of all the work that you've done in different ways on Mikis Theodorakis. You've done other works too in other departments, but let me just start out by saying that you're an author and a translator and a producer and a director of documentaries, a director of an event planner. And so you've done a tremendous amount of work from ranging from scholarly matters to actual musical events and concerts and productions. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity to talk with you. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. And I first became aware of Asteris Koutoulas through Rena Parmenidou, who said to me a long time ago, "Do you know Asteris?" I said, "Well, I don't know Asteris." She said, "You should know Asteris." So this is part of my effort to get to know you, although we've met periodically and we've had a couple of conversations. But let me begin as I've begun with some of the others that I've had the conversation with. When did you first become conscious of Theodorakis or his work?
I must say that this was in my childhood, in my very childhood. I was born with parents, political immigrants after the civil war in Romania, in a small town close to the Hungarian border, Oradea. And in Oradea, there were about 100 Greek immigrants living there together. They have to leave together with other 50, 60,000 partisans and their families in 1949, 1950 from Greece. And so I was one child of this political immigration after the civil war in Greece.
So yes, well, it was a forced immigration, right?
The leftists, the communist partisans, they had the idea that they will win this civil war in the end, and therefore they have to go to the communist countries and go to universities and go to schools and to educate themselves, so they come back to Greece and to help to build up a new free Greece. This was the dream. This was the plan. But of course, never happened. Never happened this. So I grew up in Oradea, in Romania. Then my family went to Bucharest, to the capital of Romania in 1963. And afterwards, we moved 68 to Eastern Germany. But first time I heard Mikis, it was 1961, 62 as a baby. Because my father got from Greece all the 45 discs with all the very famous songs by Theodorakis, Rizos, Seferis, yes. And then 65, I was five years old. Then we got a disc. It was for me like a mysterium because it was Actiones D.
Oh my God.
And it was like a miracle for me. You know, I think I have heard this double LP maybe 1,000 times. I don't know.
The original.
I remember today in this moment, this voice of Manos Katrakis, Kepera San Meres Poles, Mesa Seligin Ora, Oi Oi Manamu, Oi Oi Manamu. So
it's so funny that you say that.
Can you imagine this music and these words for a 5 years old boy?
Yes, so just amazing.
And you must know, for us in this, I call it political immigration. Greece, what was Greece for us? Greece was the Greek language and the Greek culture. So Greece was for us the Greek language and Theodorakis Elitis Ritsos. This is amazing.
I understand very well because, in a way, that was my experience too, a version of that, although I'm older than you are. But that the whole, the connection, being raised in New York City, the connection in what was then before Astoria, Queens. There was no Astoria when I was a little boy. And Greek Town was in Manhattan on 8th Avenue in the Chelsea area of New York City. And the connection to Greece was through music and culture and the church. There was the church too. But I cannot help but notice, I'm a psychologist, psychoanalyst, as you know, that you listen to all these great poets because of Theodorakis. And then one of your, as an adult, you translated these great poets into German. There
Very
must have been
interesting.
some connection, maybe.
This was very interesting because we had some books, but of course, this was a music. So you listen to it as a child. You have not to read, you have to listen. And it was so emotional to listen the words of Epiphania by Seferis,
Yes.
of Epitaphios by Ritsos, of Actiones D. I think this was my native education.
Yes, no, I very much appreciate what you're saying because it somehow it was your first milk in a way.
Yeah,
In a way, it
exactly.
was your first milk.
Exactly.
And
I was very happy to get this first milk. And for me, Greece was these two things, the language and this poetry, this music. This was the only things I got from my parents.
but it created, I believe, I don't want to be presumptuous, but it created an emotional connection to an identity in some ways. Not, I mean, we know that there are different parts to our identity, but one of them is the identity that's forged through language, that's forged through not just formal schooling, but what we absorb and what we absorb, especially with music, because I think, one of the things, the great things that Theodorakis was able to do was he wanted to serve poetry. And in a way, he did it so magnificently that we could feel the poetry, we could feel the words through the music, because music is about feelings. So that I'm very thankful that you mentioned what you mentioned about your own personal upbringing. And I'm sure that's been the case for many, many people outside of Greece. In a way, within Greece, uh, they didn't have to have it, although I thought it was a good idea because they were surrounded by all things Greek. They could identify with things Greek, even if they just looked at the monuments. They could identify with things Greek. But for children of the diaspora, they needed something like this, and it was wonderful that your parents had that in the house. And my fantasy is that they were seeking out this music and getting it from Greece. And this has been, in fact, people have put it into lyrics. There was a famous song from the song cycle Γράμματα από τη Γερμανία, in which one of the
Fondaladis.
that's right. That's right. He was a very young man when he did that, when he did those song cycles. And he's done other things since then, of course, wonderful things. But he has a line in there which says, one of the songs says, Στείλε μας το στρώμα σου για δυο. So send us the music. So that's wonderful. So that was an early beginning, and it's easy to understand that it would have an influence on you. And then you met Yannis Ritsos. You became friends with Yannis Ritsos.
So 1980, it was also the year I met Yannis Ritsos first time.
You met Ritsos and Theodorakis in 1980.
Yes, Yannis Ritsos, I read a book of his with the name Monochorda, monochords.
Yes.
So, and this book contains of 336 poems, and each poem is only one line. For instance, Pes Uranos Kiasmin Ine.
Beautiful.
So
Just so beautiful.
this is one poem, yeah? How you would translate it in English?
Say heaven, even if it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Μια καλή μάσκα για δύσκολους καιρούς, ο μύθος.
A good mask for difficult times, myth.
Yes.
That is so deep, that line. That's beautiful.
Or another, από κάτω μετριέται το ύψος.
From the bottom, the height is measured.
I was 20 years old. I was a student of famous Leipzig University of German literature and philosophy and so on and so on. And I liked this so much that I got from Mikis the telephone number of Yanis Ritsos, and I called him when I was in Athens. Is there Yanis Ritsos? Ναι, Γιάννης Ρίτσος εδώ. Ποιος είναι εκεί? Εδώ είναι ο Asteris Koutoulas. I'm Asteris Koutoulas from East Berlin. I would like to translate into German your monochorda. And the answer was, where are you right now? Πού είσαι τώρα? Στην Ομόνια, at Omonia Square. Okay. Τότε θα κάνεις το εξής. You will do the following. Go downstairs to metro, take line 2, come to Koraka Street. I'm awaiting you.
Oh my God. Oh
So,
my.
so until his death, together also with Ina, my wife, we went many, many times to his house in Athens, in Samos. We translated 8 books, also plays, very modern stuff, very unknown stuff, even to the Greek people. We translated into German. We had collaborations with famous painters, which illustrated some of the books, like Trakvendish and others. It was a beginning of very interesting time. And after 2-3 years, I met also Odysseas Elitis. We produced and translated 4 books in Germany. Many highlights in my life. And you can imagine, Mikis Ritsos Elitis.
Στην αρχή το φως και η ώρα η πρώτη που τα χείλη ακόμη στον πυλό δοκιμάζουν τα πράγματα του κόσμου.
What I told you about my childhood in Romania.
Yes.
So it was incredible. I met these people,
Yes.
which I heard for 1,000 times as a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old boy.
Yes. Well, that's it must have been such a surreal experience sometimes for you.
Surreal. Yeah.
Yes, but I have a feeling, knowing a little bit about who they are, just a little bit. I did not meet the poets. I've met a few poets, but not Elitis or Ritsos. I wish I had. I'm envious of your experience. But I also have a feeling that were they down to earth like Mikis? I mean, Mikis is very easy to talk to, was very easy to speak to, very available. He loved conversation. Did you have that feeling about them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful.
They were so great. Yes.
Yes. Well, they must have felt so delighted to have their poetry translated.
Yes, and by a crazy young, a lyric fanatic.
Not too crazy. Not all fanatics are crazy.
Yeah.
Let's go back for now to Theodorakis. So you met Theodorakis. What happened when you met Theodorakis, and how did you feel?
To explain you this very interesting story between me and Mikis. My father was in the Communist Party, and he loved Mikis very much. But as you know, Mikis had this very anarchistic and free-minded philosophy against dictatorship, against the power, against
Yes, authority,
authorities, against authorities.
especially irrational authority.
And that means that there was a wound because Mikis didn't accept the communist dictatorship in the socialist countries, like in Romania, in Eastern Germany, and so on. And therefore, he was forbidden in all socialist countries after 1970. So I grew up in Eastern Germany having Theodorakis in my soul, in my heart, but in the same time knowing that he was forbidden because of his opinions, of his
Yeah.
political opinions in the country in which I used to live.
Well, I could imagine that it would also create a little conflict.
The very crazy thing is that between 70 and 74, because he was forbidden in this communist countries between 70 and 80. And this was a situation which was typical, I would say, for Theodorakis, for his standing. Between 70 and 74, he was forbidden in Greece and in all communist countries.
What an irony, huh?
What an irony. He was forbidden in Greece because he's a communist, and he was in the socialist, in the communist countries because he was an anti-communist.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and
Well,
this was very important for my relationship with Theodorakis because I met him first time 1980. And 1980, he came for his first concert in Eastern Germany with the Canto General, with poetry by Pablo Neruda. Back then, I was student in Leipzig University for German philology and philosophy.
yes.
And I met first time Mikis, and Mikis was so free-minded and so incredible anarchistic that I fall in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
It was exactly this conflict that he didn't accept dictatorship and he didn't accept authority.
Yeah, well, again, but authority that was doctrinaire.
Exactly.
That was in a box. Authority that
Yes.
was in a, I think he had a lot of difficulty with that. So it didn't matter whether it was the authority of the right, of the radical right, or the authority of the radical left. He had difficulties with those things.
There was a second point which was very interesting for me in my relationship to Theodorakis. The first thing, it was his anarchistic soul. But the second thing was that he came to Eastern Germany and he came with a work that is Canto General, which was very unique. I never heard before such a thing of music. And in the same time, I was in friendship with some musicians in Eastern Germany, which were, neue Musik, the new music, composers of dodecaphonic music, of serial music.
Yes,
And
yes.
I knew many of them. I like this. And now I understood this. This is another aesthetics. And I found this difference between these two musical concepts.
Yes.
One of Theodorakis, one of the new music, incredible, interesting. And
Yes.
this is why I decided very young to translate into German the Anatomy of Music by Theodorakis.
Yes.
And this book came then out, and it was very interesting for me to see the different opinions about what is modern music, what is the musical aesthetic of the future, or how has to be the relationship between the composer and his public.
Mhm.
And this was so different answers.
How would you describe the differences? What was the modern music aesthetic and what was the aesthetic that Theodorakis was bringing?
First of all, I understand that to say that this is modern and what Theodorakis did and others is not modern, this was false. Because why you should say I am the avant-garde.
Yes, yes, yes.
So this was something which is coming from some composers, some music people, but this was the first question that I didn't accept it any longer, that this is the modern and this is not the modern.
Well, you
But
didn't dichotomize.
the main difference is that Mikis and other, they think also on the public, and the other, they think only about l'art pour l'art, music for music, and they thought more about material, how to develop the
Yes,
material.
yes,
And
yes.
and Mikis, how to, posna genisi, how to
Yeah,
say
how to give birth,
how to give birth,
how to create,
how
and
to create, exactly.
and I think in my experience, because the audience, whatever music he's writing, certainly with Canto General and certainly with his art songs, the listener is always involved in the music. It's not just an intellectual head experience.
Yeah,
It's the mind and the heart. And I think that's what he was very clear about that, as far as I understand. And studying some of your work, especially looking at the epic O Musikos Theodorakis that you wrote with all the details and the notes and I think for Theodorakis he was always, and by the way, he was always thinking of the audience. He was very
yeah.
aware of the audience, and the audience, in a way, by the way they were listening, were also participating in the music. It, and the funny thing is, funny, it's not so funny, but we know from neuroscience now that this goes on when things are working well. The audience is always engaged with the music. They're not listening to the music and are disconnected from it, right? Now he used his melodies, his melodic gifts, but he also used the poetry that he used that engaged the audience. They were interested in the audience and what the audience thought.
I met him in Eastern Germany, in Eastern Berlin, and I will tell you about a situation which was for me very important. Maybe you know Kurt Masur, one of the
Yes,
biggest
yes, yes, yes.
directors, classical music in the
Conductors, yes.
world. And he was the general conductor of Gewandhaus Orchestra and
Uh-huh.
the Gewandhaus in Leipzig. And he invited Mikis, and I was with Mikis also as a translator. And we went to Leipzig by car, and then we met Kurt Masur in the coffee shop, and he wanted to produce at the Gewandhaus theater and with the Philharmonic of Dresden the German version of Actiones D, which we did 1 year later. In one moment, Kurt Masur went out of the coffee shop, and I was with Mikis. It was 1981. He looked at me and asked me a very crazy question. He asked me, Πες μου, πώς μπορείς να ζεις σε αυτή τη χώρα? Tell me, how you can live in this country? I looked at him. What do you mean? You know what? If I would live here, I would be dead or in prison. And this was something fantastic for me. I decided to follow this man and to be his student, let's say in this way, because I was studying philosophy and I had also my ideas about this. We had many conversations, and also in many texts he wrote about me and about our cooperation. He pointed out that the relationship with me was always also between two philosophers. We discussed about philosophical themes, and you can imagine how amazing this was for
Yes,
me.
yes, yes,
But such conversations, this was very interesting. I also had a lot with Yanis Ritsos.
yes. So
So, and about this philosophical, political, And what for him, for instance, for both of them, uh, meant communism and utopic communism.
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
which didn't exist, but because they both of them they saw in this socialist countries dictatorships
yes, yes. Well,
and
they were,
not democracies.
yes,
And
yes,
and so this was philosophy, it was political things,
yeah.
but very, very interesting. This was so nice, so amazing, so
Inspiring, I think.
inspiring. Exactly.
You know,
Great.
I have a feeling to go back to something you said about Theodorakis and his music connecting with people. I think my guess is that they were also inspired by you, by your questions, and by the way that you were listening. In other words, I don't think it was just coming from, because of who they were, who I understand that they were, these people were, that how you listen sometimes can be very helpful in the development of someone else's ideas. Uh, in other words, if you were a student, they were also learning from you. And I think Theodorakis was right in saying that. Uh, and I think that speaks to what happens between people. What happens? You were bringing certain things to the conversation for Theodorakis, and he was bringing certain things to you. And then something else gets created in the process, I think, in the conversation. And I think you do that. You did that on many levels, from not just the scholarship, which, by the way, has helped many researchers. And whenever I have a question about a song cycle or a symphony, I go to a Musikos Theodorakis, the book that you, and say, oh, who were the musicians? What year was it? Because sometimes the information is on the albums, the liner notes, but the details are the details of research. Theodorakis said you used German methodology for that. That someone
Yeah.
who's raised in Greek methodology, whatever that is, could not have done that. But you had the aesthetic for Theodorakis too, and the love from what is clearly comes across in your work. So I think that those conversations must have been so rich, so enlivening, so inspiring, as you said.
What I did from 1980 on was very interesting because I I understood that these conversations um, should be conservated for the future. I had a cassette recorder,
Yes,
the old cassette recorder.
yes.
And so I have about, I would say, 100 hours conversations on cassette with
Amazing.
Theodorakis. 10 years later or 8 years later, there was the next step that I bought a small camera. I was also inspired by Ina, by my wife in this time, and she was, with Joseph Beuys, with other artists and collage, and I have learned many things from her. And this was to make photographs every day, to write poems every day, to write diaries every day, to feel the energy every day. This was something through Ina, coming from Joseph Beuys, from these artists. And this is also, I mean, parallel to Mikis, I had also influences from this
Of
from this
course,
part
of
of the
course.
world, from many German artists, painters, photographers, musicians, authors, poets, and all this came together back then in
Yes,
the in
absolutely.
the 80s, and this was one world for us. We learned to live an artistic life. And when I was together with him and with Rizos, with Elitis, with some other artists in Germany also, it was like you were in a cloud of music, poetry, philosophy, history, because this
Yeah,
cloud was the best life you could get. This is we tried, and what we did with Ina till today, to live this artistic life. And one of the most important for us partnerships for living this life was Mikis.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, he was part of that inspiration from the beginning for you, and then you were fortunate enough to also choose a partner that could provide another aspect of that, another dimension of it, and somehow all these blended together. They moved together. They were separate but connected and overlapped at the same time, it sounds like. And that was wonderful. And you could see it with Theodorakis. Also, I loved being in his home and in his studio whenever I would visit with him, because there was art everywhere. And including when you first walked in, there was this huge, beautiful poster of the Archangel Michalis, Michael, and with beautiful black and white charcoal, and he was carrying a machine gun, I think. You must remember it, having visited there a lot. But I think that the one of the questions that we've been posing is, how would you say today Theodorakis matters? What's your best understanding of? I know he matters for you, he matters for me, he matters for many people, he matters for extraordinary numbers of Greeks, both in Greece and also in the diaspora. But what's your sense of where Theodorakis stands in the larger musical world, and where you think it might go in the future?
Good question.
It's a hard question. It's not an easy question.
He matters, like he did during his life, to other artists a lot. I think this is very important, that he had admirers, but also collaborators all over the world, painters, choreographers, composers, authors, filmmakers. They were very inspired by this phenomenon.
Yes.
Because this is a phenomenon. It's not music. It's not philosophy. It's not politics. It's not poetry. It's not history. It's not ancient Greece. It's all together.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it's incredible energy.
Yeah.
So,
But it's the whole gestalt.
what matters today is standing against each kind of dictatorship.
Yes, yes.
Inside you and outside. He was a very pessimistic, very, very pessimistic artist in connection what the future will bring. Our movie, which I did together with Ina and many other artists, Dance, Fight, Love, Die, on the road with Mikis.
Magnificent. I want to say a few things about it.
In the end of this film, he says,
σκεφτείτε μια γη χωρίς τον άνθρωπο. Σκεφτείτε πόσο κρυφτένα θα είναι τα ποτάμια μας, οι θάλασσες καθαρές, τα ζώα ευτυχισμένα, τα δέντρα χαρούμενα, όλα. Είναι τόσο ωραίο. Αυτό είναι μια παραφωνία. Τα καταστρέφει όλα. Και αφού τα καταστρέψει όλα, καταστρέφει και τον εαυτό του. και τους όρους.
Well, he had experienced some of the most destructive sides of human beings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With the brutal incarcerations, the tortures, the beatings. I mean, he knew about evil from his experience, his direct experience, and he could look at it straight in the face, and say no, which was really remarkable. I think that in some ways he was pessimistic, but yes, I agree with you that I think he was an energized pessimist. He was energized.
Absolutely.
Yes, good.
Absolutely.
And by the way, that has been a description of some of the ancient Greeks who were very pessimistic, but nevertheless, they did things. They fought the good fight. They didn't just raise their hands and became passive and say, I give up.
No,
Yeah,
not at
that
all.
was not Mikis. That was not Mikis. And
No.
he also, in my way of understanding him, he also knew how to live life. He could appreciate it. But some of the others have also spoken about this. In your film, I think it was in 2018, Dance, Fight, Love, Die. 2018, right? Yes, 2018. There's one moment that is so magical to me. The two of you are in Moscow, I believe, or maybe it's St. Petersburg, and he's opening up some Soviet chocolate bar. And do you remember that? You must remember the moment, that scene. Do you want to describe it a little bit? I think it's so brilliantly the ironic.
Okay.
Θα ανοίξω το θαυμάσιο δουλάπι μου. Εδώ κάνω δουλάπι. Εγώ περνάω βράδια ατέλειωτα. Θα πάρω μια θαυμάσια σοκολάτα σοβιετική.
Από τις Άλπες. Από τις Άλπες.
Είναι από τις Άλπες Σοβιετικές. Με απόφαση κεντρικής επιτροπής
Οι Άλπες
αποφασίστηκε να μεταφερθούν λίγο οι Άλπες προς τα εδώ, ώστε να παράγουν τη σοκολάτα για το μπορέσει ο Σοβιετικός λαός να μην έχει ανάγκη να κάνει εισαγωγή σοκολάτας.
He knew how to have also sometimes a stance of humor with the situation.
Oh my God.
Yes.
He was so full of humor. This was something which he could survive. This was his surviving this humor.
As was composing with his survival.
Yeah.
He often spoke about that because he was able to keep his sanity through his creativity. He was able to tolerate the pain, the anguish, the physical pain. I mean, even just physical pain. I mean, it's, when I have listened to some of one of your colleagues, Yannis Katomeris, had a number of interviews with Theodorakis on Theodorakis' experience of the torture. My God, that's incredible. I have personally, in some of my human rights work, I have worked with torture survivors from different parts of the world. And I must tell you that while I was very moved by their experiences, to listen to Theodorakis talk about his experiences of torture and what they did to him physically was, I found myself weeping. Weeping and not being able to control myself. How horrible. So to go back to what you said a minute ago, he understood how destructive human beings could be. He understood that. And but he was also able to live a life, a full, incredible, creative life.
asked me about how is the future. What I saw this year, 2025, is that first time his name was mentioned in programs close to the big names of classical music, but also close to the names of modern composers. So, for instance, very famous Spanish orchestra makes a program Mozart, Theodorakis, Beethoven.
Mm.
This never happened before. Or the Amazonas Orchestra in the world famous opera house of Manaus, they make a program Richard Wagner, Mikis Theodorakis.
Mm.
Or in Warsaw, the Warsaw Symphony Orchestra makes a program Respighi, Theodorakis, Rossini. Or in Vienna, another big concert, Giuseppe Verdi and Mikis Theodorakis, two legends on stage.
Mm.
Or the Arena di Verona, together with this year, it was Puccini, Verdi, and Theodorakis. And you know, Arena di Verona, there are 20,000 seats, and they were sold out 4 times with Theodorakis Zorba Ballet.
Yes,
So,
which is a beautiful.
or the Montreal Symphony Orchestra produce in 2 programs, second symphony by Theodorakis and also the Sinfonietta, and the Augsburg Philharmoniker, they make a program Boulez versus Theodorakis.
Oh, versus. That's that what they said.
Versus, yes.
Oh, I love it.
Or in Nuremberg, I think there was another program, Oliver Messiaen and Mikis Theodorakis. So this is something new, never happened before. And I think it's like a canonization of his music in the classical repertoire.
Yes, yes, which he wanted very much.
Which he wanted very much.
And deserved, and deserved.
And deserve. And I think it's he must be happy that it's that this happens 4 years after his death, and not like Mozart or Bach 40 and 50 years
Yes,
after their deaths.
Yes, yes. Oh, that would be nice. That would be nice. I don't know if he knows it, but it is good. It is good, and it's also good for people to hear it. It's also good for people to participate in it because it does have a different aesthetic. It has a different sensibility to it. It's connected to all other forms, many other forms of music, but it's also, there's a uniqueness to it. And I think the uniqueness probably comes from the personality of Theodorakis and his own experiences. Because as you know, he wrote about his experiences. He composed music having to do with his experiences. So in my mind, I'm not a musicologist, but I am a consumer of music. I love to listen to music, and certainly Theodorakis. And when I discovered Theodorakis, I also discovered the poets at the same time. And I don't think I would have discovered the poets if I had not listened to Theodorakis and said, "Oh, what is this? What kind of music is this?" Because it was different. There was Greek music in my home, on the Greek radio, there was Greek music. And, you know, my family was lower working class family, and they appreciated music, but something different happened when they started to hear Theodorakis. Something much different happened that I think I've mentioned before. My mother never completed the 2nd grade because she had to go to work as a little girl. And in adulthood, she would sing Neruda because Theodorakis wrote. She would sing Neruda, you know. It was amazing, let alone all the others. And Seferis and Elitis. And I want to go back because I feel the connection with what you said about Katrakis and Asteris D. When I think of war, I hear Manos Katrakis. I hear the voice of Asteris Koutoulas talk about the tragedy of war. And the beauty of Theodorakis in that work, in my opinion, that meta-symphonic work, right? That's what he called the meta-symphonic. He knew when to insert the classical music, and he knew when to insert the laiko singer, the popular singer, and he knew when to insert the words. I mean, that was like unbelievable that he was able to do that. And how to use the popular instruments with the symphonic instruments. He was so gifted, so gifted.
We are now finishing producing an 8 episode series on the composer Theodorakis, and I think this is something like apocalyptic, because and we gave the name to this series Mikis o πιο γνωστός άγνωστος. So Mikis, the most unknown known.
Yes, yes.
So I think that even people know well Mikis, they knew maybe only 20-30% of
yes,
this.
Yes. Oh, he had an incredible.
This what we are bringing to TV. I'm very thankful to my producers, to our producers of Viewmaster, and also to Cosmote TV, that they help to bring this work to the people, because I think it's not only about personality, artist, composer, but it's also incredibly important for the cultural Greece of the last century.
Yes.
And there is no other example which you could characterize in this way. We are happy that we have such an artist, such a Greek Mozart,
yes, yes,
who brought Greek culture, also these values of ancient Greek, of democracy, of fighting for democracy, of poetry, and also of song art, and also the symphonic art, all these things together in a very, very Greek way.
That's right. That's right.
And
it has a Greek sensibility.
This is amazing that you have a Greek artist,
yes,
but on an incredible high level. If you listen to his Third Symphony, if you listen to Asteris D, if you listen to hundreds of his songs, if you listen to A State of Siege, Katasas Poliorkias, and so on and so on, if you listen to his operas, which he didn't named operas, but lyrical tragedies. So if you listen to this, it's Greek, but universal Greek.
That's the beauty of it. That's exactly the beauty of it. And I think Asteris, you touched on one of the reasons why I think he will continue. He not just matters now, but he will continue to matter. Because he did meaningful things, and he did them in a beautiful way, and he integrated all these various worlds: the dramatic, the lyrical, the epic. He was, I think you said at the very beginning, that he was able to write for the audience, for the ballet aficionado, for different audiences, but in fact making one audience. And I think you can't just listen to the symphonic Theodorakis. One also listens to the songwriter Theodorakis. One also listens to the composer of ballets, and etc. I like the way that you put it, that he's like an entire cluster, a cloud, a gestalt, a galaxia, he would say, right? A galaxy. So I think it's time for us to stop. And I want to, this has been a wonderful conversation for me. I really hope I haven't burdened you too much. I know you have a lot of things to do. And before we stop, do you think that the episodes that you have created, I know they're available in Greece, but do you think they will be available outside of Greece?
this is the goal. Let's see what the next steps is.
Okay, good,
Are
good, good.
what
Because
the
I
next
think
steps
that would
are.
be wonderful because knowing your work, the different kinds of work that you've done over the years, that this will be an amazing new project on your part, and how much work it takes. This is not something that just happens very quickly. It's not just TV. It's more than TV, right? And Asteris, thank you very much for this. I'm honored to have you here with us, and I'm sure that the English language audience will marvel at your language skills also. You're too modest. You're too modest.
You know Socrates and what he said, ξέρω τι δεν ξέρω. Και αυτό είναι η πιο υψηλή της γνώσης επίπεδο. To know that you don't know anything, it's the highest level of knowing.
Yes, I agree with you. And that's the irony of it, right? It's Socrates being ironic, which he was very
Exactly.
good. He was very
Exactly.
good.
Thank you so much.
1,000 thank yous. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Spyro. Bye.
You will.